SMEs to be employers in this country. But what you find, and I have no problem with traders, what you find, the policies are very heavy on trading. Bring things, import them, sell. And what we are effectively doing is we are exporting our jobs to those countries that are doing mass manufacturing. We may not, you see what Mukisa here and myself, when we were doing the Vision 2030 preaching, saying is manufacturing is not about building ships and aircrafts and all that. Make sure that the small things, this seat that you are sitting on here, is done here. When we do that, the question you are asking about goonism will not be there. But coming to that specific question, we have a big problem because of the trend we started setting in before 2022 elections, where popularity contest is about how big a crowd have you been able to mobilize. And because mobilizing means giving them money to attend your function, then you start creating a culture where even if you called people to give them a policy direction or to sensitize them on things that are important, they won't come until you give them money. Because that's the culture we have set. Then, because this mobilization has become a trade, there are actually people who are directors of small companies of supplying you with goons, if you like. And the problem is, for now, if I don't agree with you, I can be able to mobilize goons, they deal with you. And we have seen, because we live in this country, that there is a bit of look the other way by government, because we have seen places where you are seeing obvious goons and there is police there and they are not taking action. Obviously that wouldn't have taken place during our time, because goons are goons. The danger, Jeff, is that very soon the users of goons will have no use for them. What will they do? They will turn back to you and me, because they are used to being fed. You are feeding a vampire and hoping that when you don't need it, it will go back into the forest. It won't. And I think this culture, if leaders are listening, it's a culture that should be nipped in the bud now, because they are growing. Assuming we have about 3,000 active politicians today, each with 50 goons. It means we almost have 1.5 million goons hovering around. What will you do with them after the elections, after you don't need them? So it's a dangerous trend.
Dr.
Yeah. The number of things that come to mind for me. One, picking up from Mr. Kibisho, is if you grow illegal militias, sometimes recruiting people who have been given military discipline training, use of guns, and you're creating them for fighting your political battles, they can morph into a phenomenon that destroys the essence of the state. Whether you talk about the Tonto Makut in Haiti, or the Janjaweed, who are now called Rapid Deployment Forces in the Sudan. These are political militias which were built by the people controlling the state to fight their political battles. Then they morphed into monsters with an insatiable appetite. In the case of Sudan, they challenge the institutions of government. They want to be government themselves. We saw that happening also in Russia. Now, there's a second thing. It's a statement of political poverty when seeing that you are failing to win with the force of argument, you try to win with the argument of force. One of the enduring problems of mainstreaming using goons because they are politically correct is you are undermining the instruments of security. No. You force the police to condone criminal actions, sometimes supported by police, with police vehicles. Yeah. You have police vehicles carrying the batons that these criminals use to fight people that the state, the government does not like. Where will this end? Ruto is responsible for the development of institutions of law and order. He inherited a long heritage of building institutions with credibility. It will go down sadly if he succumbs to this primitive politics that you are settling scores. You don't like those people, you'll send some goons to beat them. You don't like these young people, you'll send goons to abduct them. Some of them disappear forever, and people stop talking after some time. This criminality being mainstreamed is a problem that can undermine the perpetual existence of due process in Kenya.
And P.S., that's why next month, about a month from now, will be June 25th, the celebration, the commemoration of the Gen Z demonstration. And the Gen Zs, the way I see them, they're still not satisfied with the way things are going.
You know, Jeff, for the period you and I have been alive, even your grandparents, since Earth was created, you have never seen a knife jump to stab a person. A knife can never be here and it jumps to stab you. It must be in the hands of a person.
Correct.
And I think we pick it from there. This knife is the same one that is used in hospitals to do surgery. Very nice, save life. It's the same knife in a kukatakatia cabbage in the house to cook for you. But the same knife that we are using to kill. So you better be careful who is holding the knife. Because if you're a doctor, you are holding it to save a life. If you're a chef, you are holding it to feed a nation. If you're a criminal, you are holding it to cause mayhem. I have Gen Zs also in my house. And if there is a group of people whom I think we must encourage, because they have transcended our primitive thinking around tribes and around all this. Yeah. You know, mine, yours, and Daktari's here probably don't care whether they are Kikuyus, Luyas, or Kalenjins, or Luos. They don't care. I asked mine, sorry if my daughter is watching, I apologize. One time when they were demonstrating in 2024, so I see her wanting to go to demonstrate, then I asked her, you tell me, you as a person, what's your grievance? Because I pay your fees, I feed you, you know, you have no grievance on earth. She told me, you are getting it wrong, Dad. We want to save you people. She said, we want to save you people because you have been unable to save yourself. And she told me, we are going to do exams, and there are some of my classmates who won't do exams because the education funding system is not working. That's my daughter telling me. Her fees is fully paid, but she is going to demonstrate because there is a colleague of hers who won't sit exams because they are from a poor background and they are unable to continue. And I think as we encourage these young people, because we must exit the scene as the old people, we must ensure that we are leaving them with sufficient capacity to run the affairs of this country, because it belongs to them. And I think for me, I will never hold back. You hear I allowed even mine to go there. Mine, yeah. But I just told them, usikue mbele sana, sitaki kukuzika mapema. But the thing is...
You were worried about her and them.
Of course, you are a parent, you will worry about them. But I think we must also reflect back. This country, any revolution that has come in history has come through young people.
If you were the Interior PS then, would you have allowed what happened on June 24th? June 21st, 2024?
You see, June 24th
25th.
to 25th of 2024
yes.
didn't just happen. No, there was build-up. There was, in a country, you have a National Intelligence Service, you have all the institutions of government that tell you how things are. And I think what is unfortunate, Jeff, is you allow something to go to the extreme then take the same action you would have taken in day one. Why not take the action in day one instead of allowing it to go to the extreme? Because these people have very legitimate concerns. And you see, the more we keep postponing these concerns of theirs, the more we are making the problem big. Yeah. You see, there were demonstrations on transport last week, on Monday. In my home of Kirinyaga,
yes,
they had barricaded roads and started looting shops.
Correct.
Why are they doing that? You might criminalize them, but they are doing that because they don't have jobs, they don't have hope, and it is upon us and upon the government, because government cannot run away from this one. It's why it's government. You know, I just laugh sometimes when Mukisa here talks and he is asked what he is doing for people. He can't do nothing. He's not government. He's an individual who things should be done for, because he is not government. When he runs, like you are wishing him to be president,
yes,
then we will ask him what he is doing. But now we can't ask him. He's not government. So I think the responsibility lies with government to ensure that the grievances that are being raised by these young people,
yeah,
because the concerns are legitimate. You have them in your house. We have them. We are living with them. The concerns they are having are legitimate, and we cannot trivialize them by shifting blame, backstopping. It is time we started listening to what these people are saying.
Doctor, you agree?
To a large extent, I agree. For me, the Gen Zs are a gift to this country. I walked to the front line of popular activity as a relatively young person.
Yeah, you were part of the Young Turks, they call them
Not
Young...
just the Young Turks. Young Turks came more than 10 years after I'd been expelled from university by Moi for leading students in protesting against the establishment of Section 2A, making Kenya de jure a one-party state. And I've been very concerned that millennials, the mantra for millennials were pesa mfukoni. What are low-hanging fruits? They talk about quick personal enrichment. So I'm very happy about Gen Zs who are saying, go beyond personal greed for money and talk about what is long-term economic gain for this country. How can we make sure that the tide raises all boats? That is a very important and reassuring thing for me. What we have as a responsibility is we blend the energies, the commitments, and the sharp instruments of communication of the Gen Zs, the experience, the knowledge of all the generations, and give birth to a new dream about a country that is sinking in morose politics today.
Can they make the difference in 2027? Can Gen Zs make that difference?
A number of things. First of all, across generations, there's sufficient disenchantment with the status quo that should, under normal circumstances, lead to a clear change. Secondly, we are seeing unusually high registration of Gen Zs as voters. If we can sustain that movement, and we can sustain more mobilization from among themselves and recruiting and developing political leaders who are Gen Zs to be among the main leaders of political discourse in the country, they are going to have a major impact on the character of national politics, leading to and beyond the next elections.
Well, PS, but what if, as we were saying before the break, what if there's this fear of rigging the elections? There's that fear.
You know, first, let me say, all revolutions that have succeeded through history are done by young people. And you won't wish their problems away. You know, Jesus was 33 years.
33, yes.
You know, Dadan Kimathi was below 30. Mukisa here was less than 30, and all the others. Because unlike you and me, who are worried, you know, me when I see the riots have sustained beyond 1 week, I start thinking about, oh, my biashara has closed. You know, I have power bills to pay. These Gen Zs are having no hope. There's nothing for them to lose until you solve their problem. And what are they saying? Give us jobs. What are they saying? Give us education. What are they saying? Empower us to have a future. Until you solve that problem, You can suppress them, but they'll keep coming back. And I think I'm very happy about the registration, as Mukisa here is saying, because they are saying something, that this time we are ready to change this country. And the talk of rigging, of course, from where I sit is reckless, and coming especially from leaders, because even if you are planning to rig, why are you boasting about it? You boast to us that you rig, that you can't. I'm happy about their resolve to ensure that they protect the vote. You have seen a lot of them, because they are technologically very gifted. You have seen a lot of them even developing apps to monitor the election. And there is one very good thing that has happened, which I'm very happy about, that the announcement of election at the polling station is final. We shall be there. How do you change it?
There's something I want to say about this, about preparation for rigging. And this is very, very serious. I have been engaging top diplomats from friendly countries, together with a few other colleagues from the opposition, on very discomforting trends. You see, Ruto has fallen behind in opinion polls, not accidentally. He's lost the mountain. He's not been able to do a popular grab of the Luo electorate like he had expected. He's not gaining traction in Ukambani. He has lost much of what he had gained within the Luo community. Where will he get the numbers to compensate for his major losses? In such a situation, a rational political player goes on a charm offensive. You want people to like you. You want to appear like you are assuring to everybody. Then he goes to Western Kenya, insults Eugene Wamalwa. He has no wife, he has no home, he's like renting wives. Primitive talk. You know, some of us, the first reaction we had, said, when we were hearing primitive Sudi talk in public like a little idiot, we thought that when he gets closer to Ruto will moderate him and starts talking a bit more sadly. But what we were saying is that Ruto is the one who started to talk like Sudi. So it's Sudi impacting Ruto more than Ruto impacting Sudi. And Eugene Wamalwa has a wife. Eugene Wamalwa has a very nice residence in Milimani in Kitale. He has a nice house on a farm in Kiminini. He has a nice residence in Spring Valley in Nairobi. So if you want to insult him, which I cannot understand why do you use lies to insult him? But what do you gain as a president who is struggling to regain support by insulting credible leaders in communities where you are looking for support? Secondly, Ruto took to heart this anti-Kikuyu thing when he was campaigning in 2007, when he was telling Luos that we Kalenjins hate Kikuyus more than you do. And we know what he did after the elections of 2007. Now he's using minions like Omar Sarai, half Mazurui, half Digo, who has rejected his Digo identity, he thinks he's an Arab, to insult Kikuyus and upcountry people. Not mentioning the fact that the Mazuruis were the principal culprits in alienating the land rights of the Mijikenda, historically. The people he chooses to identify with. But it's not just about him. Ruto is happy sitting there. There is no close person to the president who will go to a presidential function, say a silly negative thing with the president keeping quiet unless he has his endorsement. So Ruto is playing up again anti-Kikuyuism. How will that help him? How will it help those members of the Mulima community who have struggled like Ichungwa to appear like they can be rational and still be with Ruto? So where are we? You listen to persons like Mbadi. You saw the insults that Mbadi was spewing out. The Minister of Finance, Those of you who are proud because of Raila, where is he to defend you? Such an insult on a credible, dignified leader. Part of our national heritage is Raila. And a person who has got into public office because of Raila, defecating on his grave 6 months after his death, is an insult not just to Luos, but to Kenyans. But if that's the kind of talk you make to please Ruto, how are you going to help him win support in the Luo community? So what am I saying? If Ruto intends to remain in power, and he keeps telling us he must remain in power, that those of us who don't agree with him do not know anything, who have not gone to school like him, and he is putting forward the foot of hate, ethnic biased recruitment in public service, reward to ethnic bigots, how is he hoping to retain power? He must be thinking of some method other than through a popular contest. But he should be told we're not going to beg from him. I saw when there was action in June 2024, all Starbucks trucks were off the road.
Yep.
He's exposed. He's above average rich through mostly illegal methods. If property is destroyed, Ruto is hurt more than those of us who don't have that kind of property. Where is the personal interest in destroying the heritage of peace that has allowed an undemocrat democratically become president of Kenya?
But PS, is there a fear we could go back to 2007, 2008? Is there that fear, deja vu all over again?
You know, these things are created slowly. And people who have not witnessed them or were at the periphery of them think it's a joke. When you start creating a tribal animosity, and you make a tribe feel less Kenyan, it's just like a cat. When you take a cat into a room and you corner it, what will happen? It will fight back. And you know, that is the most reckless thing that is happening at the moment. I dare say this, Jeff, you know, in this country where we all belong, we have had regular elections. There were times when these decibels of tribal animosity were high, 1992, 2007, and we saw the results. I don't think if these people don't tame their tongues, it will be any different. You see, we were trying to solve this problem of political competition, for example, through BBI, which is, of course, being sneaked all through, yeah? And there are some things that, Jeff, are embarrassing to accept as a country, that we are tribal. You know, we will continue burying our heads in the sand. It's like in a photograph, Jeff. When you pick a photo where you are, you don't start looking at the face of Mukiza. You look at you as first and see, how do I match in this? This is how we are in this country.
But Jeff, there's something I didn't mention.
Go on.
This is the first time in the history of this country since 1963 that the minister responsible for internal security is fueling the embers of ethnic hatred. The statements by Murkomen about Kikuyus and the protests against the substantial increases in petroleum prices represents a very, very dark thinking. And he's supposed to be one of the more schooled ones about in the group that is close to the president. So if some of the better ones think and utter things nonsense like Murkomen, what do we expect of the others, the Sudis and others?
And you were saying earlier on, he wouldn't make a statement like that if it wasn't endorsed by his boss.
Of course. The Minister for Interior, Ruto will have stated otherwise immediately. He came back from that totally useless meeting he went to. He went to a meeting for junior ministers on housing, a habitat meeting, costing us $500 million shillings, and coming back to tell us about austerity and budgetary problems. He would not have let it go if he didn't believe in the nonsense that Murkomen was saying.
Executing the point that just before Daktari was saying, once we accept that we have this problem and weakness as a country, then we try to see how we best make use of it to survive as a nation. And I think when BBI was trying to solve that, you know, there was trivialization. This thing is about possessions. Let me tell you, looking you in the face, there is no politician on planet Earth who seeks political power other than that he wants possessions. Why would you seek political power if that's not what you want? And therefore, when we have understood our history and our country and say that this is how we would want everyone, when they look at the photo, to see their face. This is how we would want it to go. It's rubbish. Yet, probably, given 3 cycles, we would have, of course, us who are so tribal in our minds have left the scene and left the Gen Zs to run the show, because they don't have these boundaries. So I think it is time, because we must also talk about solutions to these problems.
Absolutely.
It's time that we sat as a country and said this. We can collect as much tax as possible. You know, we have a finance bill that is running around, proposing this, proposing that. We can collect as much tax. But as long as we are not addressing the expenditure side, just like your home, if you are spending more than you are earning, you will go into debts and debts. And if you are actually going into debts to buy food, then you're in real trouble. You better go into debt because you are buying a piece of land. But if you are going to borrow so that you buy sukuma wiki, know that you're in real trouble. And I think this is where we are. For me, I think it's not all hope lost. If we got serious and said, we seriously want to address the expenditure side. And the expenditure side is to ensure that expenses that are necessary are removed or moderated to a level that it leaves you without borrowing for food.
Okay, let me ask you this, Boniface, and I'll get both of you actually this question. If you were to offer advice to this united opposition that's there right now, let's say, Rigathi Gachagua, what would you tell them?
First, let's say Rigathi Gachagua is not the president of this country. Rigathi Gachagua is in opposition, and the work of opposition. You know, it's very irritating for government to start telling opposition to do things. Opposition can't build roads. Opposition can't build hospitals. Opposition cannot bring policies. They can only promise policies in future, because they are not government. Government is the one that has all the instruments to make things run. Government is the one with the instruments to give you services, not the opposition. But what I would offer as advice is that after there is sufficient pressure to ensure that government is put to task on expenses, on austerity, on the things that they are passing through parliament that affect human rights, or the whole spectrum of things. That's the work of the opposition, to ensure that government is put on its toes. But besides that, on the side, develop, because you are alternative government. It means that if this government is not there, you are the one who will take over. Yeah. What are your policies? And I think that is what we need to start hearing more and more and more, but not to respond that you did build a road. You can't build a road, Jeff. You are not government. Roads are built by government, not opposition. Hospitals are built by government, not opposition. Opposition's work is to challenge government to perform well.
Dr. Ari, are you the official spokesman for your United Opposition?
I don't know what that means, really. I'm not doing too much speaking. There's some things that I do consult and share with leaders in the opposition.
Yeah.
There are others that I think about as an individual, as a public intellectual. But if you ask me a question, what would you say to the current opposition? There are 2-3 things that I think are important. One, there's a momentous responsibility for the opposition to give hope to a country that is increasingly getting hopeless. Reassure Kenyans that there is a day peacefully post-Ruto's regime. And to do that requires a number of steps. One, move from the promise to actual concrete activity of integrating the opposition as a broad, united front for political action, but also for mobilizing ideas about how to redeem Kenya post the next election. Another thing that I will say to the opposition is have a more structured and broader engagement with Gen Zs. You can't say you are broad opposition with insufficient engagement with Gen Z. That, I think, is an important thing that we have to do. A third thing I'll say to the opposition, to my friends and colleagues in the opposition, is let's not fall into Ruto's trap of answering ethnic bigotry with ethnic bigotry. We should be a reassuring force. And then finally, there is a major decline in economic thinking in this country that has to be arrested. You see, under Kibaki, and Kibaki said this in a number of recorded statements, the essence of economic growth is creating possibility, creating access to credit and production capital for entrepreneurs to grow wealth and employment opportunity. Make them competitive. Reduce the state borrowing too much money and making credit very expensive for entrepreneurs. Since then, what we have seen, instead of seeing business as the drivers of growth, we have seen government as the driver of growth. So the model of economics is increase how much you collect from the people and then give them development. Now, this thinking is very ill-advised. Government is not what grows the economy. Government should prefect, should create circumstances, should create instruments to make made in Kenya competitively priced, increase the yield, the competitiveness of Kenyan labor in order to return to the helm of productivity in this region and start expanding around the opportunities of Africa. Instead of saying, we want to increase taxation on this, government needs more of this, we have to show a $4 trillion shilling budget because we want to bring development. And what development do they bring? Ill-advised architecture on affordable houses. You go to a village in Busia and you find these ugly high-rise things in a village, and people have no economic activity around that village. How will they come to live in affordable housing away from the fishing areas where they get their livelihoods? It's just because government had managed to collect tax from people, it had to do something that it can point at as development. We have to get the opposition to graduate beyond this negative, unfortunate mentality.
Okay, let me
unlock Kenyan potential again.
Okay, let me ask you this. This united opposition,
yes, is
it united? In other words, can they rally around one of these principles? Because they all want it.
I know. I have worked with people who all wanted and eventually united. I believe that there is growing public pressure that nobody should walk away from the table. There is insufficient development of the mechanics of keeping everybody at the table. And I think that going forward, the public declaration of commitment to being one team and everybody saying you should not be the one to be responsible for failure to keep the hope that Kenyans are having rising is going to discipline people to purposefully sacrifice personal ego and be ready to be part of our leadership and see one of themselves not as better than others.
Are they listening?
But primus.
Are they listening?
Some of the time.
Not all of the time. But yes, you went from one of the most powerful civil servants in government to mere political silence. Are you preparing for a comeback in some way? In other words, are you going to run for office in 27? If so, what?
I start with the answer, then feedback. The answer is no.
No, you're not going to run for office?
I'm not going to run for any office. And the reason is, this thing, we are talking about Gen Zs, we are talking about youth empowerment. We must actually believe in it and practice it. If it was during those old days, I would be retired because I am past 55. And for whatever I've been, what you are describing and what, of course, a lot of the descriptions I hear around me is false, but assuming it was true, it's because Kibaki gave me an opportunity to be a PS when I was 42 years old. I think I should allow the 42 years old too. And that's my reasoning, that we will remain available to the 42 years so that they also become like us. Yeah.
Dr. what are you running for?
I'm not running for any office.
At all?
At all, at all.
What if they ask you? What if they come to you and say...
Of course they have asked me. There's a lot of people try to flatter me, including yourself. But if everybody is looking for becoming president, then there are not enough persons with that stature who can help advise that we can tone down our individual egos. So I'm definitely not running for an elective office, but I remain engaged to make my contribution that my grandsons have a better day when they become older people than the millennials are having today.
What if those grandchildren you're talking about, they'll blame you, they'll blame PS, they'll blame me. They said you people didn't do enough.
Precisely, that's why I'm still engaged without seeking any benefit for myself. I want that posterity says there were enough persons who had a capacity for personal ego and ambition, but we say, let me step aside and try to see what can I contribute to make a smoother transition to a better country.
You know, Jeff,
yes.
If you put the whole country in this room, the 50 million of us.
58?
58. I don't know, they are 50
plus
something.
Plus minus.
And asked them, who can run this country as a president? Probably 49 million. We raise their hands. And I think this is the tragedy that we have. That we think, I'm not a very big fan of football, but I see when you are on the benches, you have very good advice. That guy would have kicked the ball this way, It's the same with governance. People outside government have very beautiful answers to governance until they get in there. I am seeing a lot of clips being played about previous statements. I'm really enjoying myself because you are advising on how to do this thing. Now you are in the play field, do them. So this thing of governance is not just about, and I think there is evidence enough now, it's not just about getting into office. You must be prepared, you must have, Jeff, there are people who are leading in this government who have actually never, ever held a position of leadership anywhere. I worked with Mukisa here, so we would send him a cab memo, and you'll find he has read it with even yellow stickers marking, revise this clause and all that. There are people who are actually leading this country who have never had that experience. And then you give them power. And power
corrupts.
Power
corrupts.
Corrupts.
And absolute
and
power.
when you have it absolute, absolutely corrupt. So you find that you can be able to make a phone call, give Jeff 50 million, and Jeff gets it. Then you make a second one. Give 100 million. It comes. Then you start imagining that everything in this country belongs to you, to the disadvantage of the Kenyan people. And I think this is a tragedy. And I agree with Mukisa here. Those of us who have had an opportunity to serve Kenyans, an opportunity to read through these documents and mark with the yellow stickers, we have a responsibility to nurture these upcoming leaders without blocking them and assuming that they can't do it.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, there's lots of feedback coming in very thick and very fast. Let's just get to it. Oh, Sir Nixon Dugida says, Jambo Viongozi, we usually see cabinet secretaries engaging themselves too much in active politics. And maybe this could be the reason why we see the president doing works that should be executed by them CSs. What's your take on these?
Well, my first pick on it is the president is reducing CSs into political errand boys. And then he centralizes government at State House. And, you know, we have seen this. I've talked to senior CSS and former CSS who say you can sit with the president and he goes through the motions of pretending to be listening to you, and you can even agree with him about what should be done. The minute you get into your office, there's a phone call from the head of public service telling you the opposite of what you discussed with the president. So there's a futility of your advice in the running of government. So the easier part is to be sent on the errands that are being sent to go and talk politics on behalf of the president. It's totally uncalled for. You know, he has even taken it to speakers. The Speaker of Senate was talking this nonsense at the coast. The Speaker of the House has become such an errand boy on politics, distributing root of money in Western Kenya. This is where we have come.
This is what we've become.
Totally.
It must be very frustrating.
Leadership, Jeff,
it's not.
Leadership is about the ability to delegate and trust.
Like Kibaki did.
In fact, we have such experienced civil service, such experienced leaders of independent institutions, that all you need is to have the capacity within you to delegate. But you cannot have the capacity to delegate and trust if you have some complexes and if yourself you are insecure. You cannot have, because government is a big system, and if you centralize decision making, then the space at which development, at which decision, at which anything moves is based on the person's speed. And when it's that person, you can imagine the number of things required to be decided around government every day. There are thousands.
Absolutely. Next. Sheila Sweden says, what happened to Mokisa Kitui? Saw him a few weeks ago in Geneva. Is he trying to reapply for the UNCTAD job? If Ruto offered him a job in his government, would he accept the offer? If not, why?
The position of an Under-Secretary General of the United Nations is a 4-year mandate, renewable once. I served 8 years. There is no third term. That's not Uganda, where you can just apply for a job. And that job was elective. I was elected by the General Assembly for the maximum 2 terms. As of Ruto offering me a job, I was approached a number of times, but I laughed it off. I thought it was a silly joke. Ruto does not respect professionals in his government. That's why he drives out people like Ndungu, former CS Treasury, because he wants echoes. He wants, if you have gone to school enough, you must reduce the evidence of having gone to school and sound like Sudi. Then you are comfortable with him.
Freddie Matiba says, Dr. Karanja Kibicho is not being honest. He claims the civil service is no longer what it used to be, yet he cannot clearly explain why or how it has changed.
I don't know how clear I can get. Civil service, I hope Freddie interacts with the civil service because even if we left, we are still with them. What is the level of delegation to the civil service? What is the level of interference through politically appointed advisors? And what is the confidence that the civil servants have? I don't think I need to explain. All he needs to do is to walk to a ministry and talk to people quietly. But we can see it. When you see that some of the policy documents that come to us, can see they are not very well polished. You know, in a properly working civil service, there are levels at which documents are processed. Are those levels functional? But most importantly, is the delegation part and the trust part of the civil service working? It is not working, and you can tell because look at appointments, for example. You can even tell when an advert comes who will be employed.
Is that obvious?
It's not that obvious. What does it tell you?
Yeah. Next, Bore Collins says, ask Mr. Kibisho whether he or any state actors under his watch played any role in the alleged attempts to manipulate the 2022 election results. Does he think the elections were fair, 2022?
You know, I keep getting these questions and it's laughable because if there were attempts to manipulate, what stopped us? Who stopped us? We were in the government. Who stopped us? You know, these are some of the rumors that goes around town. But let me put it in context to you, Jeff. I'm sure you are around when President Moi was the president.
Indeed.
And in 24 years, Kenyans had a very serious problem. That when there was handing over at Uhuru Park, people were throwing mud at him. But we buried him a hero. You know why? Have you ever asked yourself why? It is because President Moi handed over power peacefully. I'm sure there are people in the security sector watching me, and I will remain grateful to President Uhuru Kenyatta for this. Because he called us around February and reminded us that his biggest legacy is not building SGR, is not the infrastructure that he had done, that he will, in his last term, have a very, very peaceful electioneering period and peaceful handing over of power. That is his legacy. And that is what he will be remembered for. Jeff, do you know a place where there was violence during electioneering 2022?
Not one.
Did Uhuru hand over power peacefully?
Yes, he did. He swore.
I can look you in the face and tell you I did not receive one call from President Uhuru to say rig elections. Otherwise, what would have stopped us?
But let me ask you this, Baram, yes, real quick, before we go to the next one. It is said that President Kenyatta did not openly, or even behind the scenes, he didn't support Raila Odinga then.
I wouldn't know what you mean by that because he kept saying publicly, I don't know what else he would have done. What happened is after elections were done, votes were cast. Yeah, Ruto had 200,000 more than Raila. Now I ask people to tell me, did they want Kibicho to rig an election?
Did you support Raila?
I voted for Raila.
That's not the same thing. Did you support him?
I was a civil servant. I wasn't supposed to participate in an election, but I voted for Raila.
Okay. Next. All right. That's Gori Barasa, where it says, allow me to digress and shoot my question straight to Mukhisa Kitui. Why would he leave a prestigious job at UNCTAD to come back home and gamble politically? He was a prominent figure in the United Nations, or United Opposition, then fizzled out. What happened?
I have just answered.
You did. 2 terms.
I was almost finishing my 2 terms. I was remaining with 2 months, but there had been a resurgence of COVID in Central Europe, and we had gone into virtual working. Now, to spend my last 2 months frozen off in an apartment in Geneva did not seem very, very enticing to me. So what I did is to leave my station 2 months before my 8 years was over. So there's nothing like leaving a nice job to come back to Kenya. Yeah.
By the way, your apartment wasn't too shabby overlooking Lake.
It was a penthouse, it's not an apartment.
There you go. It was a penthouse. Kagwe Kanini says, one of Kenya's darkest days was when Raila returned from the US in 2017 after elections. That year, KNHCR reported at least 37 deaths in Nairobi between September and November. How does Kibisho reflect on such incidents, having served as Interior PS at the time?
The Ministry of Interior has a responsibility. And the biggest one is, of course, to protect life and property. In 2017, there was a contested election that had pitted Raila and Uhuru almost at 50% each.
Yeah.
And I think when you have half the country disagreeing with the results and the other half very happy about the results, there is that possibility that there will be some friction between these supporting groups. And because Raila had actually claimed, remember he had gone to Supreme Court, it was nullified, he didn't participate in the next election, and of course that agitated his supporters a lot. Now when you are government and there is an agitation, what you do is ensure you use within lawful means minimum force to contain so that you protect lives and property. And it's for that reason, Jeff, that the government of the day sat down and asked itself a basic question. There is half the country that is unhappy with the results, and they are Kenyans. What do you do with them? Do you put them in a jail? Do you kill them? What do you do? Do you chase them from Kenya? So you have got to sit down and hear them. And that is how the journey towards the famous handshake started, because we have a country to run. And imagine, even as I sit here, other than how do you move forward after you have solved this political problem, becomes my area of focus. So I forgive even the current government when they had to go to a handshake of their fashion with Raila, because there is half the country unhappy with the results. But how do you use that handshake then to move the country forward is what should be of interest to us. And I think the lessons we have learned, nobody is happy when there is a resistance that results to deaths. But the lessons we've learned is that why do we want to walk through that journey that we know very well?
Tell me something. Were you part of that handshake? Did you know it was going to happen on that March day?
I wasn't part of the handshake because that was a discussion between Right Honorable Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta. But when it came, we supported it and ensured it worked.
So none of you knew about it?
We didn't know about it. It was their discussion, and even Raila said it while he was alive over and over, that they were locking themselves just like in Rome, Vatican.
The Vatican.
They wait for white smoke.
Black smoke, white smoke.
Yeah.
Samuel Owuat says, Dr. Mukhisa, considering that the state is bigger than political competition, do you believe opposition leaders should discourage goonism and instead support President Ruto in maintaining stability and advancing development for all Kenyans?
I believe all political leaders, whether in government or opposition, must defeat the culture of goonism. But to support President Ruto, when he's the main financier of goons, we saw in the by-election in Malava, it was government goons coming in government vehicles who even physically attacked the opposition member or candidate. And they were non-idiots. Nothing has been done. So to help Ruto is really to buttress goonism. What we should do is ostracize every politician, whether in government or opposition, who resorts to hiring goons as part of the machinery of political competition.
Absolutely. Next. Here we go. Ras Bashir Ruere says, Karanja Kibisho, during your time at Interior, many Kenyans accused the government of using excessive force against protesters and critics. Do you believe the state respected human rights under your watch?
Actually, during our time, if you look at the number of interventions that happened through IPOA and through can't remember what the name is now, but there is an internal mechanism for police to ensure that any use of excessive force is dealt with. The only problem that we have, like I had said when you are watching from outside, is when there is agitation and you are a policeman in the middle of agitation, depending on how agitated the crowd is. Unlike you and me, who from where we sit, we can be able to be analytical. This guy is in the middle of people throwing stones at him, people wanting to ban him, and therefore his decision making is not as you are seated on this bench. And whenever that happened, what would happen is then he would be taken through the process to check, was the decision rational or not. And there are so many of them who are punished. There are so many of them who lost their jobs. There are so many of them who are even put to prison.
Do you regret any incident or any decision you made as PS?
Not one. If I went to the Ministry of Interior, I would do the same things because we saw the results of those things, that we had a secure country, 7 years, very few incidents of lawlessness. This was only coming during an election cycle, and it would wane out very quickly. But ask a normal Kenyan how secure they felt during that time, because that is what would give you an indication. Because every other thing, Kebicho Matiang'i didn't, ruthless and all that, what is supporting that? Who are we ruthless to? Our responsibility was to ensure that lives of Kenyans and property are protected, and we did that without fear or favor.
Freddie Matiba says, kindly, Jeff, ask Dr. Karanja Kibisho, why did the River Yala happen under his watch?
You know, I was going to be very sad if I left this show without that question. Very, very sad. Because I'll start from the answer. There is no government security officer who has an answer to this River Yala thing. And you remember when my former boss was asked about this question and proposed a public inquest around it. Because, Jeff, sisi ni raia hapa na Mukisa. We are not government. And if there is any wrongdoing, it should be punished. But I want to ask you, Jeff, these are 5 years since this topic started. Do you know a person who has a sister, a relative, a cousin who was collected in River Yala? A brother, a cousin, so that we know who is... Because sometimes I think we just deep dive into some very emotive things without questioning. How about if River Yala was Shakahola? Because once you block and put your thinking and eyes on blinkers, then you'll never allow yourself. But the basic question to ask, why is government refusing to put that public inquest? But most plainly is, how comes nobody claims my cousin, my brother, my mother, my father was collected in Riviera? How comes? So it could be deeper thing than we understand. And the only way to solve this is to put a public inquest. That's the only legal way to do it. But the answer straight is that there is no government meeting I sat in, I know of, that said kill people and throw them in Riviera. And if there is, we are not in government, then we should actually be jailed and charged in court.
Okay. Next, Okello Mwalimu says, with utmost objectivity, can they opine on major achievements of the Ruto regime this far? Lastly, with all due respect, remind them of the Uhuru prophecy of Kumi Yangu, Kumi Yako. Achievements of the Ruto regime. Dr. Ari.
Yeah, sometimes I've been struggling with this idea. What are the main achievements of the Ruto regime? I'm still struggling with it. Certainly in foreign relations, it has been a failure. In Kenya's economic interest within the East African community and the continental free trade area, it has been negative. There are some infrastructure projects they have done, but at inflated prices, starting, for example, with the expressway from Rironi to Mau Summit, which had been negotiated at a price, and European Development Bank offered financing, and Uhuru, and what Ruto did is something similar to what some minister did when with mines in Kwale, that you cancel a contract, negotiate a new contract, and top it up with monies for you, so that inflate the cost of the project. The disaster in education, the disastrous taxations of Kenyans, these are very substantial problems. But then back to this kumi yangu, kumi yako. If two people are saying, help me to win power and I'll also help you to win power, that may be binding between them, but it does not bind the Kenyan electorate. And I definitely will not say that Ruto should be my president because Uhuru told him he could become president. That hasn't that of by supporting anybody, has nothing to do with entente cordial between two politicians.
But P.S., let me remind you that during your time, people could say one of the darkest times was you deported my good friend Miguna under very dubious circumstances. That was pretty tragic.
You know, we could deal with this first because I can see.
He says, ask P.S. Kibisho whether he ever apologized to Dr. Miguna after his forceful exile while he served as PS in Interior Docket. How does he feel today remembering those human rights violations that happened under his watch in office?
The first one, because I must touch that one, Jeff. That governments exist so that they give services. There is no other reason for existence of government. It's to protect you and give services to you. And those services are known. So that question, actually I should direct it to you more. That there is a service called healthcare. Do you feel it's working? There's a person. You know, you ask yourself about these services, then you answer the question. And I agree with what Dr. Mukisa is saying here. Uhuru has one vote, Ruto has one vote. The rest of the votes are with us. And it's us who will decide what we do with them after we are convinced that the services that we employed you to give us, you've given them satisfactorily. Then we will agree whether to deal with you or not. It was a very fashionable thing when I was in government. You know, I had become the government boogeyman. It doesn't rain somewhere, Kebicho. It doesn't, someone fights with a wife, Kebicho. Jeff, I was the PS for State Department of Internal Security, yeah, and coordination of government. And I had my work cut out for me. This work, immigration, you know, it was very good to put, and I am not trying to put my friend, because I also have knowledge, having been in the ministry, of what was happening. But this work, of course, the relevant PS was Dr. Kihalangwa. But he wouldn't be fashionable to say. It would be very nice to say Kebicho is the one dealing with Miguna. What had I to do with Miguna? I wasn't the PS for immigration. But it was very fashionable. But I also know, for some reason, that there was very, very, very elaborate attempt to try to return Miguna to Kenya. If he is watching, and I saw the other day he's trying to say he'll sue me, Miguna knows that when the constitution was changed to allow for dual citizenship, he had already renounced his here to be Canadian. He knows that. He knows that every Kenyan who had done that and wanted to regain their citizenship did not need to do anything other than to fill a simple form. There were no because you cannot be denied, especially when the country allowed dual citizenship, you cannot be denied to be a citizen because you are born here. And I think that push and pull around, fill this paper, do this, is what caused him these problems. But to continue pushing Kebicho, you know, there's a matter that was taken to court. It was dealt with and concluded. And if there was any wrongdoing, then what would we be apologizing to Miguna for?
Okay.
I hope he filled the forms, because if he didn't fill the form, he got his passport against the law. I hope, because I know he was given his passport immediately after he left.
Right.
I pray that he filled the form, because it's just one page. In fact, it had been filled for him. Sign here.
Samuel Watts says, Dr. Mokgisa, if previous governments asked for patience while implementing their agendas, why is President Ruto criticized so heavily, even as his administration pushes economic reforms, infrastructure projects, and job creation programs?
Because the agenda is not economically and intellectually justified. You see, you can say, I have this agenda. I want to look at this thing, it doesn't work. The original health insurance had weaknesses, but it could be improved upon to be more efficient and effective. So if that is the thinking that I buy into, I cannot give him time to do what I think is wrong. Similarly, I did discuss earlier that the main drivers of economic growth is entrepreneurs. Government crowding business people out of credit markets by borrowing heavily domestically makes the cost of money so expensive for investors that businesses decline. When you add to that super taxation, because government wants money so as to do more infrastructure, you are standing the whole concept of economic development on its head. So I'm saying I do not support Ruto because he's doing the wrong things. He should not stifle enterprise. He should not think that this country is about glossy mega projects at phenomenal cost, including massive borrowing abroad, which has taken away all the development resources for government. And we just continue. If you are in the hole, stop digging. He's in the hall and speaking. If we are poor and you have an economic agenda, don't show us your lavish extravaganza. This thing about hiring expensive jets to fly around the world. These things about increasing the budget of State House to 17 billion shillings. This thing about very tribally driven recruitment of persons into public office. These are not an agenda that you can say we gave others a chance to do, give him a chance to do also. We criticize others when they went off the line, and we criticize him also when he is losing the direction of government. I think,
Jeff, because I had something to add on this. If you have a manifesto or a development call for Kenyans, the way we had Kenya Vision 2030, we came to Big Four. I don't know what the rallying call is now. But tell me, will I be wrong if you told me that in 6 weeks, I will have brought the cost of gas from 1,000 to 300. Am I hiring you after 6 weeks when I ask you? You see, the problem that we've seen is first there was this perception that there's a silver bullet somewhere that will come and solve Kenya's problems. And Kenya's problems are roads and houses. You know, there's that perception, which I don't agree with. That is not the only Kenyan problem. But if we assume it is, and you say that I am going to give you a 200-kilometer road in 6 months, then it's justifiable for Kenyans in 6 months to come and ask, where is the road? We are not rushing anyone. And I think sometimes you shoot yourself on the foot by wanting to look like you are smart, you know, smart objectives, yet you have not looked at the money side, whether it's possible. You know, I saw a promise of a Narok International Airport in Masai Mara. Jeff, if you followed the law, to push through that tender alone so that it's a tender awarded to someone could be a year. That's true.
For the tender alone?
For tender alone, before you dig.
Without digging, yeah.
And therefore, I think the advisors of the president, need to do better, so that before he promises something, they have shown him the timelines. Because I think it's the timelines, the six. I don't know what's magical about six everything. You know, that is making Kenyans look impatient. Yet it's the problem. Then secondly, if you overpromise when you are doing campaigns, then don't blame people for asking for results, because you promised them. You said that once I am in office, you will be calling for free in the markets. You said. So once you're in office, we expect to call for free. So Kenyans are asking the right questions, and they'll continue asking.
Absolutely. Juliet Mukali says, watching JK Live, and I cry for my country, Kenya. How did the current administration approve Kenya to be an isolation center for Americans to quarantine from DRC? Our leadership doesn't care about the safety of Kenyans, or greed is at the center of it all.
I agree with you.
Said that, Dr. Kimani says, I really pity our country. Surely, with Ruto government, professionalism means nothing. Teachers are getting jobs in public rallies, and the TSC is silent.
Sad truth.
John Ogoye in Kisumu says, the bench is